The city's breath, a stale whisper of diesel and damp concrete, filters through the cracked pane of your office window. Dust motes dance in the shaft of tired light, each a tiny, mocking star in the gloom of your own making. Your desk, a battlefield of forgotten invoices and cold coffee rings, bears the scars of a life lived on the fringes. The ghost of old whiskey clings to the worn fabric of your trench coat, draped over a skeletal chair, a permanent companion to your solitude. Now, it's a footnote, a cautionary tale. The brass plate on your door, R. Maxwell Investigations, is tarnished, much like the reputation it represents. The sun, a grudging orange slash across the skyline, bleeds into the room, painting the peeling wallpaper in hues of regret. Each tick of the cheap wall clock is a hammer blow, marking the slow decay of ambition, the steady erosion of purpose. The insistent ring of the rotary phone slices through the quiet, a jarring intrusion into your reverie. It's an antique, a stubborn relic in a digital age, much like yourself. UI, a harbinger of either more debt or another dead-end case involving a stray cat or a cheating spouse. It's the detective. The voice on the other end is a familiar rasp, a man whose career you once envied, now merely tolerated. That's something you might appreciate. There's a brittle edge to his tone, a hint of something beyond professional courtesy. Appreciate what exactly? Another case of misplaced dentures? You lean back, the springs of your chair groaning in protest, the scent of stale paper and desperation clinging to the air. Though this one's different. High profile. A senator, this time. He was found him on a yacht at anchor storm closing in, sealed briefcases. The words hit you like a physical blow. The air thickens, heavy with the weight of memory, the ghost of a past you thought buried under layers of cynicism and self-loathing. The chair ceases its complaining. You are suddenly rigid, every nerve-strung taut. Say that again, you command, the monotone replaced by a sharp, predatory urgency you hadn't realized you still possessed. Yacht at anchor, storm closing in, 2 sealed briefcases, untouched, sitting beside him. No forced entry, and the method, read it's precise. A single, clean incision, right where the carotid meets the jugular. No struggle, almost ritualistic. The detective's voice drops, a tremor of unease threading through his words. Just like the councilman, all those years ago, the image of the city councilman's lifeless form, discovered in his opulent penthouse, floods your mind. The perfectly arranged study, the 2 leather briefcases, locked and untouched, positioned like morbid sentinels. The single, clean cut that had ended his life with surgical precision. A pause on the other end, long and heavy, confirms your worst fears. A specific type of silk cord, tied in a sailor's knot. The same one, and guess what? No prints. Nothing but a faint trace of a rare, imported cologne. The same damn scent. The phantom killer, the true architect of that intricate crime, the one you had failed to catch, has returned. The man you put behind bars, a scapegoat, a convenient answer to a city clamoring for justice, flashes behind your eyes. You had believed you solved it. You had closed the case, accepting the accolades, burying the nagging douse deep beneath layers of professional pride and a thirst for closure. But the meticulously crafted lie had festered, waiting. They're calling it a copycat, the detective continues, oblivious to the earthquake rumbling beneath your calm facade. But the details too exact. The press is already swarming. The past is not merely echoing. It is clawing its way back, demanding retribution. This isn't just a new murder, it's a taunt, a personal challenge from a ghost you thought you had laid to rest. The dust motes still dance, but now they seem to swirl with purpose. The city's stale breath no longer feels heady. It's a current, pulling you forward. You are no longer just Reed Maxwell, disgraced PI. You are a man haunted, a man determined. And this time, you will not fail. The biting wind off the bay whips your trench coat around your legs, a prelude to the storm gathering on the horizon. The sky overhead, bruised purple and gray, mirrors the turmoil churning within you. Flashing blue and red lights stain the pre-dawn gloom, painting the dock in a macabre strobe. This is where the nightmare begins anew. You push past the yellow tape, a ghost amongst the living, your worn PI badge a flimsy shield against the glares of uniformed officers. They recognize you, or at least the name that precedes you, a whisper of scandal and a shadow of former glory. No one tries to stop you, not truly. They merely watch, their gazes heavy with judgment. The vessel bobs gently with the restless water, a silent witness to the horror it contains. The air here is thick with the metallic tang of fresh blood, mingled with the sharp scent of sea salt and diesel. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor runs through the yacht's hull, a low thrum against the rising wind. You step aboard, your shoes quiet on the teakwood. The victim lies sprawled near the stern, a prominent city official, his face a mask of serene terror. His eyes, wide and unseeing, reflect the churning clouds above. Around him, with a chilling precision, are 5 leather briefcases. Each one is identical, pristine, and tightly sealed with intricate brass clasps. They are not scattered, they are arranged in a precise semicircle around the body, almost like an offering or a declaration. This meticulous arrangement, the deliberate staging, it's a ghost of a memory, an echo from a past you tried to bury under layers of whiskey and regret. You gesture vaguely toward the tableau. But I've seen this signature before. The detective scoffs a dismissive sound. Every killer has a signature. Read. This is a high-profile target, likely a disgruntled business partner, a political rival. We've got a dozen leads already. He bends, examining one of the sealed briefcases, his brow furrowed. Nothing inside, just air, and a faint, sweet smell, almost like cedar. The old case, the precise, almost ritualistic arrangement, the lingering scent of cedar, a detail buried deep in the archives, dismissed as incidental by the original investigators. But you had noticed it. You had catalogued it. The way he is positioned, you begin, your gaze sweeping over the victim's body. The angle of the wound is identical. You point to a specific, almost surgical incision on the victim's neck, a detail the general police wouldn't immediately recognize as unique. And the briefcases, the number, the exact arrangement, it's not random. The detective straightens, his expression hardening. Maxwell, I understand you're trying to cling to some relevance, but this isn't a rerun of your past glory days history. His colleague, a younger officer with sharp, observant eyes, glances between you and the detective, a flicker of curiosity in his gaze before he quickly looks away, deferring to his superior. History repeats itself. Sometimes, you push, your voice laced with an urgency you rarely allow. The councilman all those years ago was solved. The detective cuts you off, his tone final. A man is in prison for that crime. We're securing the scene, moving the body. You should go. Read. Before you contaminate anything, your jaw tightens. They don't see it. Or perhaps, they don't want to see it. The terrifying precision, the deliberate taunt, the scent of cedar. This isn't just a new killing. It's a reenactment, a meticulous recreation designed to shatter your peace, to mock your past certainty. You take one last, lingering look at the scene, etching every detail into your memory. The way the victim's hand is curled, almost reaching for one of the briefcases. The small, almost invisible scuff mark on the yacht's pristine deck, near where the killer must have stood. They may dismiss you, but the killer hasn't. It's a reenactment, a meticulous ritual meant solely for your eyes. The cedar, a signature you dismissed as an anomaly, now a stark, fragrant brand. The briefcases, identical in their chilling emptiness, a silent challenge across the years. They don't see it. The other faces blurred by the storm's approaching gloom, their minds still grappling with the novelty of the horror. The wind whips at your coat as you leave the dock, the air thick with the promise of rain. Each gust feels like a whisper of accusation, carrying the salt tang of the bay and the phantom cedar scent that now clings to your memory. There is no other path now. The answers, or the crushing weight of your complicity, lie buried in the dust of old files. Your own office, a cluttered sanctuary of forgotten cases and stale coffee, becomes your tomb. The shelves groan under the weight of binders, each spine a testament to a life ended, a truth sought. You pull down the one marked Councilman Archer, case 07-14. The leather is cracked, the corners soft with age, a physical manifestation of the years that have passed. The overhead lamp casts a harsh, yellow glow, illuminating the fine layer of dust that coats everything. A silent witness to your long neglect. You spread the contents across your desk, a mosaic of grim recollections. Crime scene photographs, now faded, reveal the opulent interior of another yacht, the same unsettling neatness. The victim, Councilman Archer, lay precisely as the new victim, a tableau of deliberate staging. You sift through witness statements, police reports, forensic analyses. You remember the certainty, the clear path to conviction. A photograph catches your eye. It's a wide shot of Archer's study, taken days before the murder. On a polished mahogany desk, nestled beside a stack of legal texts, sits a small, intricately carved cedar box. You'd catalogued it, noted its presence, but dismissed it as irrelevant to the method of death. Cedar scent! The coincidence prickles a tiny needle of doubt. This box was never mentioned in the official narrative of the cedar scent at the crime scene, only a vague reference to woodsy notes. You flip through the witness statements again, searching for any mention of that box, or anything that might connect to cedar. Most of the councilman's staff had been interviewed, their testimony is largely corroborating. But one name surfaces, a forgotten periphery, Alara Vance, an administrative assistant who handled Archer's personal appointments and correspondence. Her initial statement, buried deep in the supplementary reports, contained a peculiar detail. He was very particular about his office, she'd said. Always wanted a specific kind of air freshener. Said it reminded him of home. The type of air freshener was never specified, the detail lost in the noise of the bigger investigation. You find her current address listed in an old directory, a quiet residential district on the city outskirts. The drive is a blur of gathering clouds and the first fat drops of rain splattering against your windshield. The storm is truly breaking now, mirroring the tempest brewing within you. Alara Vance, older now, her hair streaked with silver, opens her door with a hesitant smile that fades as she recognizes your face. Detective Maxwell, she says, her voice thin. It's been a long time. You cut to the chase. No time for pleasantries. MS Vance, I'm visiting the Archer case. I need to ask you about something specific. The councilman's office. Do you recall anything about a cedar box? Or a particular scent he favored? Her eyes, once bright and observant, now hold a distant, wary look. She pauses, her gaze drifting to the framed photograph of a young man on her mantelpiece. A son, perhaps. He did, she finally says, her voice softer. He had that little cedar box? Yes. And he insisted on cedar incense, not air freshener. Said it helped him focus. I always thought it was an odd detail, given everything. Odd how? You press, your gut tightening. Well, the official report, it said the scent was from a cleaning product. Didn't it? Something about the yacht being freshly cleaned. But I know he hated those chemical smells. He was particular, and that incense, it was strong. I remember once, a visitor complained it made them feel lightheaded. A cleaning product, not incense, not the cedar box. A deliberate misdirection, a subtle twist in the narrative you'd swallowed whole. The original investigators, perhaps eager to close a high-profile case, had found a convenient explanation for a detail they couldn't immediately reconcile. Or worse, they had been led to that explanation. The pieces begin to shift, rearrange themselves with sickening clarity. The cedar box in the pre-murder photo. Alara's dismissed detail about incense. The new victim, again with the pervasive cedar, again with the meticulously sealed briefcases. This wasn't just a reenactment, it was a correction. The killer wasn't just repeating a crime, they were completing a message, meticulously correcting every error in your original interpretation. You put the wrong man behind bars. The true phantom, patient and precise, has been waiting, biding their time. And now they have returned to expose your failure. The storm outside rages, but the real tempest has just begun within you. The scent of that cleaning product, a phantom whisper in the quiet of your apartment, clung to your thoughts. It was the domestic fragrance, not the lemon zest of a kitchen or the pine of a tiled floor. It was something sharper, industrial, a chemical cut through the air that had once been dismissed as an anomaly. You traced the worn crease of an old photograph, a wide shot of the councilman's study from years ago. A smudge on the polished oak, barely visible, had been noted as a cleaning residue in the original report, then forgotten, swallowed by the more dramatic narratives of motive and opportunity. Now, that smudge felt like a scream. You pulled up the preliminary report from the new killing, the digital files cold and stark on your screen. Your eyes scanned the forensic notes, a methodical search for echoes, and there it was, buried in an inventory of trace evidence, unidentified chemical residue, faint, present on victims' clothing and immediate surroundings. The phrasing was frustratingly vague, yet your gut twisted with recognition. This wasn't coincidence. This was a signature, a call to a forensic technician, a former colleague whose quiet competence you always trusted, brought a hesitant confirmation. Reed, their voice, usually calm, held a tremor of professional curiosity. You're onto something. The sample from the recent scene, it's a specialized solvent, not your average household stuff, used in, well, heavy-duty applications. Think industrial degreasing, some specific types of construction cleanup. Extremely potent. The words hung in the air, pulling a tight knot in your stomach. Industrial construction. Suddenly, the image of the slain councilman, a champion of urban renewal projects, flashed in your mind. And the new victim, a mid-level architect, had been involved in one of the city's most ambitious and controversial waterfront developments. A thread, taut and unsettling, began to emerge from the tangled skein of the past. You spent hours poring over old city planning documents, news clippings, anything that linked the councilman to specific projects. The waterfront development, known as the Harbor Resurgence, kept resurfacing. It had been plagued by accusations of inflated contracts, environmental shortcuts, and whispers of backroom deals. Heavy-duty, industrial-scale cleanups. A name from the old Apex Demolitions roster, a former site manager who had vanished after the harbor resurgence project stalled amid public outcry, snagged your attention. You heard rumors of him resurfacing, a ghost in the city's underbelly, always with a new identity, always with information for the right price. A discreet message, passed through a series of intermediaries, yielded a rendezvous. The sky was a bruised canvas as you navigated the winding lanes leading to the marina. The air grew heavy, thick with the promise of rain. You stepped onto the gangplank, the wood groaning beneath your weight, and moved toward the enclosed deck where a silhouette waited. The vessel swayed gently, a prelude to the tempest gathering above. The figure waiting for you was a man whose face was a roadmap of past regrets and present anxieties. He was the fixer, a man who knew where all the city's skeletons were buried, because he often helped bury them. Read Maxwell. The fixer's voice was a low rasp, barely audible above the rising wind. You're looking for ghosts, aren't you? The ones that still walk. You met his gaze, the sea air whipping your hair. I'm looking for a specific kind of ghost. One who uses a very particular cleaning agent. One tied to Apex Demolitions, to the harbor resurgence. The fixer's eyes narrowed, flickering toward the briefcases on the table. They were pristine, locked, their contents unseen but palpable. That cleaner, he began, his voice dropping further. It wasn't just for degreasing. Apex developed a proprietary mix, used it to remove something persistent, a certain type of sealant, experimental, used on some of the old pilings. Caused a lot of problems. Environmental nightmares. The councilman knew. The architect, who was really behind it. The fixer took a slow, deep breath, his gaze fixed on the churning water. Apex was a shell, a front for bigger players, people who wanted that waterfront land cleared. No questions asked. The councilman was an obstacle, then a puppet. The architect, a loose end, and the solvent. It cleans everything, leaves no trace of the real problem. Just a convenient chemical signature for the cleanup crew. The storm broke then, a sudden deluge drumming against the yacht's windows, mirroring the violent clarity that ripped through your mind. The original murder, the councilman's death, wasn't just a political hit or a robbery gone wrong. It was a calculated silencing, part of a larger, systemic cover-up orchestrated by powerful, unseen hands. The cleaning product wasn't just a detail. It was a deliberate, cynical misdirection, designed to point towards an innocent explanation while concealing a far more sinister truth. The sealed briefcases on the table now pulsed with a dangerous gravity. These, the fixer said, nodding towards them, contained the proof. The original environmental reports, the real financial ledgers for Apex, the names of the true owners. The councilman had them. The architect was trying to get them. This whole thing, it goes deeper than you can imagine. Read. And the killer? They're not just a phantom, they're a surgeon, cutting out anyone who gets too close to these truths. You stared at the briefcases, then at the fixer's haunted face. The world had just tilted on its axis. The storm raged outside, but a far more treacherous tempest had just begun within you. Your gaze, sharp as a honed blade, sliced from the twin leather cases to the fixer's face. A landscape of etched fear. Rain, a relentless percussion, hammered against the cabin windows. Each drop a tiny hammer blow against the hull, mirroring the tempest churning within your skull. These, you began, your voice a low growl, are not just briefcases, are they? The fixer swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing like a trapped fish. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, darted toward the cabin door as if expecting an unseen presence to materialize from the gathering gloom. They are a burden, read Maxwell, a weight you do not want to lift. Too late, you countered, your hand already reaching for the nearest latch. I'm already lifting. Tell me what's inside. Tell me who put them here. He flinched as your fingers brushed the cold metal. No, don't open them. They're sealed for a reason, not by me. Why, they contain the threads, read. The threads of the entire tapestry. The original design. The frame up, you breathed, the words tasting like ash. The councilman's murder. You're telling me these cases hold the proof that I locked up an innocent man, that someone else orchestrated the entire thing? The fixer nodded slowly, a tremor running through his gaunt frame. More than proof. They hold the blueprint, the names, the connections, the paths, everything that kept the real killer hidden, and everything that put the other man behind bars. It implicates everyone, from the top to the bottom. A spider's web, read, and the spider is still spinning. Your mind reel. It was a continuation, a meticulous, patient dismantling of a carefully constructed lie. And you, the detective who had solved the original crime, were a central piece of that lie. The true killer wasn't merely finishing what they started. They were methodically unraveling the very fabric of the city's power structure, exposing every thread of corruption. Who else knows about these? You pressed, your voice tight with urgency. Only those who need to know. And now you. That makes you vulnerable. The one who built this game. The one who is now tearing it down. The realization hit you with the force of a tidal wave. this wasn't just about solving a murder anymore. It was about surviving the fallout of conspiracy so vast, it dwarfed anything you'd ever encountered. The killer wasn't just a murderer. They were a judge, jury, and executioner, meticulously dismantling the corrupt edifice brick by brick. And anyone caught in the demolition zone was fair game. You rose to the cabin feeling impossibly small, the air suddenly too thin to breathe. I need to see what's inside. No, you shouldn't, the fixer pleaded, his voice cracking. It's a death sentence. For all of us. Ignoring his pleas, you snatched the briefcases. The weight was substantial, not just of paper and metal, but of secrets and lies. Tell me where I can find you. If I need to, don't disappear. He gave you an address, a dilapidated warehouse by the docks, his voice barely a murmur. As you stepped onto the deck, the full fury of the storm embraced you. The yacht pitched violently, ropes straining against their moorings. Each step on the slippery deck felt precarious, a metaphor for the ground crumbling beneath your feet. The briefcases, heavy and ominous, rested on the seat beside you. As the taxi pulled away, you glanced back at the retreating outline of the yacht, a lonely sentinel against the tumultuous sky. A prickle of unease traced your neck. Had someone else been watching? Back in your cramped office apartment, the silence was a stark contrast to the storm outside. You placed the briefcases on your worn desk, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim glow of your desk lamp. Your gaze swept across the room. Nothing seemed out of place. The stacks of case files, the half-empty coffee mug, the scattered notes all exactly as you'd left them. But then you saw it. On the small, tarnished silver tray where you kept your spare change and a few forgotten keys, a single, perfectly folded origami crane sat nestled amongst the coins. It was not yours. You had never owned an origami crane. Your breath hitched. The apartment door had been locked. No sign of forced entry. Yet, someone had been here. Someone had entered your sanctuary, moved through your private space, and left a deliberate, silent message. The crane, delicate and white, seemed to hum with an insidious energy. It was a calling card, a whisper in the dark, a chilling confirmation that your dangerous questions had indeed attracted unwanted attention. And the game, you realized, had just become personal. The yacht groaned, a lament against the tempest's might. You stood on the deck, the cold spray a constant assault, each wave a fist against the hull. The city lights, once a comforting tapestry, were now fractured diamonds through the rain-streaked darkness, distant and indifferent. The wind, a predatory beast, tore at your coat, its howl drowning out the frantic creak of straining ropes. This was not merely a storm. It was the world's fury, mirroring the chaos stirring within you. Below deck, the air was thick with the scent of salt and old leather. His eyes, usually sharp, held a weariness that spoke of long nights and deeper fears. Each was secured with a combination lock. The councilman kept them there. His gaze met yours, unflinching. He trusted no one, not entirely, not even his own shadow. You knelt, fingers tracing the cold metal of the first lock. And the codes? They're tied to dates, he replied, a faint tremor in his voice. Dates that meant something to him. The day he first ran for office, his daughter's birthday, the day he bought this book. He rattled off a sequence of numbers, his memory an archive of forgotten loyalties. The first lock clicked open with a soft snick, a surprisingly delicate sound in the roaring tempest. You lifted the lid. Inside, meticulously organized, lay stacks of documents, ledger sheets, property deeds, and faded photographs. The ledger entries, initially cryptic, began to form a pattern. Large sums of money funneled through shell corporations, all linked to a massive waterfront redevelopment project, the very project the councilman had championed with such fervor before his demise. This project, you murmured, pulling out a sheaf of papers detailing land acquisitions. It was going to transform the entire Docklands. The colleague nodded, and make a lot of powerful people very rich. Richer than they already were. He pointed to a specific page. See those names? The partners in the primary holding company? Some of the biggest players in the city. And look at the dates. The payouts started just before the councilman's murder, and continued after. Your gaze swept across the names. A prominent industrialist, a high-ranking city official, a construction magnate. These were not mere investors. These were the architects of the city's skyline, its hidden power brokers. The councilman's murder wasn't a standalone act of vengeance or a random crime. It was a calculated removal, a silencing. He knew too much, or perhaps he was about to betray the scheme. You opened the second briefcase. This one held detailed blueprints and environmental impact reports, all stamped with official seals. But tucked beneath them, almost hidden, were internal memos. These weren't public records. They detailed proposed cost-cutting measures, shortcuts in safety regulations, and the intentional disregard for ecological assessments. The project, publicly lauded as a triumph of urban renewal, was a meticulously orchestrated fraud, built on compromised ethics and illicit gains. The warehouse address the colleague had given you earlier, the dilapidated one by the docks, now clicked into place. It was listed as a primary storage facility for materials. He thought he could control it, skim a little, then walk away clean. But once you're in their web, there's no walking away. Not alive? Anyway, the third briefcase contained personal correspondence, encrypted emails, handwritten notes, and a small, leather-bound journal. The journal, written in the councilman's distinctive, elegant script, chronicled his growing unease, his fear, and ultimately, his desperate plan to leak the information. The last entry, dated 2 days before his death, spoke of a final meeting, a last chance to set things right. The new victim, you said, connecting the threads. The one found last week. He was an architect, wasn't he? Maybe he was the one the councilman was going to meet. The colleague's face was grim. He was the one who drew up the revised, illegal plans. The ones that cut corners and saved millions. He was the next loose end. A wave slammed against the yacht, sending a shudder through the cabin. The lamp flickered, then held steady. You felt a grim satisfaction, an icy clarity. The murders were not random. They were precise, surgical strikes in a larger war. A war for control, for wealth, for power. And the phantom killer, the one you had mistakenly believed you'd caught years ago, was not merely a killer, but an enforcer, a cleaner of inconvenient truths. You looked at the names on the documents, the powerful figures whose greed had spun this intricate web of deceit and death. Your own past, your own disgraced reputation, was now irrevocably entangled in their machinations. You hadn't just put the wrong man behind bars, you had become an unwitting pawn in a game far deadlier than you could have imagined. The yacht, a lonely sentinel upon the restless obsidian, swayed with a rhythmic groan. Outside, the world was a canvas of gathering fury. The storm, a predator of the deep, was closing in, its breath a chilling whisper across the darkening expanse. Rain, a fine mist at first, now lashed against the cabin windows, each droplet a tiny drumbeat against the glass. You watched the tempest gather its strength, a reflection of the maelstrom brewing within your own skull. The grim satisfaction from your last deduction, that icy clarity of a war for power, had solidified into a heavy dread. On the polished mahogany table, the sealed briefcases sat like silent, enigmatic guardians. Their leather gleamed under the flickering cabin lamp, each clasp a promise of secrets held tight. They were twin anchors, tethering you to two timelines, two failures, two specters that refused to rest. A low, insistent thrum vibrated through the hull. Not the engine, nor the storm. It was the satellite phone, a stark anachronism in this vintage vessel, demanding your attention from its cradle beside a stack of weathered charts. Your hand hesitated, a tremor barely perceptible, before reaching for the receiver. The screen glowed, displaying an unknown number, a digital ghost. You pressed it to your ear. A voice, distorted by static and an artificial filter, slithered into the quiet cabin. The phantom, the term you'd used in your own internal monologue. How could this voice know? Your grip tightened on the phone, knuckles stark white. You buried the truth. The voice continued, unwavering, under layers of ambition and convenient lies. You put the wrong man away, Reed. You stood, pacing the small cabin, the yacht's gentle rock now feeling like an impatient lurch. Does it matter? The voice chuckled, its sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement. What matters is that the scales must balance. And you, Reed, are the fulcrum. Then came the blow, a precise strike that ripped through your carefully constructed walls. Do you remember the young analyst? The one who believed in your crusade against corruption? Your breath hitched. The young analyst, not with a bullet, but with a threat, a ruined reputation, a quiet dismissal into oblivion. It wasn't the councilman's murder that had truly disgraced you. It was the compromise, the sacrifice of an innocent to protect a larger, uglier truth. The detective, your former partner, he's a man of routine, isn't he? The filtered voice continued. Each word a slow turn of the knife. A morning coffee at the same diner every day. A quiet life, now. A life that could be disrupted. Just like the analysts. The yacht pitched violently, a rogue wave slamming against its hull, sending a spray of icy water across the deck. This wasn't just about the councilman anymore. This wasn't about solving a new murder. This was about retribution. This was about you. The killer knew everything. Not just the public disgrace, but the private compromises, the ethical shortcuts, the quiet betrayals that festered beneath your hardened exterior. The analyst, the detective, these were not random targets. Starting with the detective's morning coffee, the line went dead. You stared at the dead phone, a burning fury igniting in your gut. This phantom wasn't just a killer. They were a judge, jury, and executioner, wielding your past as their most potent weapon. They were tearing down your world, brick by agonizing brick, and the first brick had just fallen onto someone else's head. The sealed briefcases on the table now seemed less like guardians and more like accusations. But the Phantom remembered, and now they demanded a reckoning. The storm outside raged, a perfect mirror to the tempest of determination that solidified within you. This was no longer just a case. This was personal. This was war. The dead silence of the phone echoed the hollow space within you, a void where anger now burned, molten and fierce. The Phantom's voice, a serpent's hiss, still slithered through your mind, twisting the knife of accusation. They weren't just a killer. They were a puppeteer, pulling strings attached to your deepest fears, your buried past. The wind, a rising crescendo, lashed at the windows of the saloon, rattling the glass in its frame. Rain began to drum, a frantic rhythm against the hull, mirroring the tempest building inside you. This vessel, a luxurious cage, rocked gently with the rising swells, a cradle of secrets in the encroaching gloom. You watched the horizon dissolve into a bruised palette of grays and purples. A figure emerged from the companionway, their silhouette stark against the dim light filtering from the deck hatch. It was the former colleague, their face a canvas of strained composure. Said it was urgent, and a message straight to me. Someone knows. Someone is unraveling everything. You gestured to the briefcases with a curt nod, and I think what's in those might just be the first thread. The former colleague swallowed, their atoms apple bobbing. Those are old files, proprietary. They have nothing to do with this. Their hand moved, almost imperceptibly, towards one of the cases. Don't lie to me. You commanded, your voice low, dangerous. Not now. Not after everything. You walked toward the table, your steps deliberate, each one a hammer blow against the silence. The Phantom mentioned the original case, the one we closed, and they mentioned my involvement, the corruption I tried to bury, the secrets we thought were safe. A tremor ran through the former colleague's frame. Their eyes widened, betraying a crack in their carefully constructed facade. Reed, you're talking nonsense. We followed the evidence. The courts agreed. The courts agreed with what was presented. You countered, leaning over the table, your gaze pinning them. Not necessarily with the full truth. Tell me, why are these particular files on this particular yacht? Waiting for a storm to break, you pointed to a specific briefcase, its leather worn at one corner, a faint, almost invisible scratch near the clasp. You remember that scratch. It was from a late night in the precinct, a coffee cup skidding across a desk years ago. The former colleague's jaw tightened. They're just old case notes. My own. For reference. Reference for what? You pressed. For the Phantom who's recreating a murder scene. For the killer who knows exactly how we handled the original investigation. Or for the person who helped ensure certain details never saw the light of day. A bead of sweat traced a path down the former colleague's temple, despite the cool air of the cabin. They looked away, toward the churning water visible through the saloon windows. The one that disappeared from the evidence locker? The former colleague flinched. Their hand trembled as they reached for the briefcase again, this time with a desperate urgency. That was inconclusive, unreliable, and you knew about it. You shaped it. The pressure from above. The city councilman was powerful. The department needed a clean win, all to protect a corrupt system. The betrayal, a jagged shard, pierced your chest. From the fallout, from the truth about who is really pulling the strings in this city. They gestured vaguely to the sealed briefcases. These contain the proof, the original notes, the real forensics, the names. I was holding them, just in case it ever came to this. The revelation landed with the force of a physical blow, and they had held the keys to that injustice, sealed away in these very briefcases for years. The Phantom wasn't just exposing a killer, they were exposing the architects of the cover-up, one by one. Rain streaked the portholes, blurring the distant lights of the city into weeping smudges. You stand on the slick deck, the spray a cold caress against your face, your gaze fixed on the figure leaning against the mast, their silhouette stark against the bruised twilight. The air crackles with more than just the brewing storm. It hums with the unbearable weight of betrayal. You came, the voice cuts through the wind, calm, almost conversational. It is the voice of a trusted colleague, a partner in the trenches of countless investigations, now revealed as the architect of your undoing. I had to, you reply, your own voice a low rumble, each word a stone dragged from the well of your conviction. Only someone intimately familiar with your methods, your blind spots, could have woven such a perfect snare. And what did you expect to find? Read Maxwell. They ask, a faint smile playing on their lips, devoid of warmth. A confession? Yes, that's the truth about the councilman's murder. Justice is a malleable concept, isn't it, Reed? A construct of the powerful, twisted to their whim. You saw it, didn't you? The corruption, the rot beneath the city's gleaming surface. The councilman was just the first domino. He was part of it, part of the system that devoured integrity. A sudden gust whips your coat around you, and you brace against the railing, your eyes never leaving theirs. So you decided to be judge, jury, and executioner, a test of the system's fragility. A cracked, didn't it? And you, my friend, were the perfect tool. Your past, the shame of that faulty investigation, now twisted into a weapon against you. And the new victim? What was their crime? Collateral. A message. They state, their gaze hardening. The new killing wasn't about the victim at all. It was about you, about bringing you back into the fold, forcing you to look closer, to see what you missed the first time, to expose the deeper rot, to bury the evidence once and for all. But I couldn't let that happen. Not after all this. They gesture toward the cabin, where the sealed briefcases sit, the leather polished even in the dim light. Inside those, read, is everything. The true ledgers, the coded communications, the names of every official, every executive, every crooked hand involved in the councilman's empire, the ones who profited from his death, and the ones who orchestrated the cover-up. The magnitude of the revelation is staggering. This wasn't just about a single murder. It was about tearing down an entire edifice of power and deceit. And your colleague, your trusted partner, had been playing a long, dangerous game, using you as an unwitting pawn. And you were willing to sacrifice anyone, including me, to achieve your twisted vision of justice? You demand, your voice rising above the wind's howl. Sometimes, the cost of truth is high, Reed. Higher than a single man's reputation. Higher than a single life. Think of the thousands who suffer under their thumb. Think of the real victims. I started this, and I had to finish it. The second murder was to reignite the investigation, to force your hand to ensure these briefcases found their way into the light. They take another step closer, their hand reaching into their coat. Your muscles tense, ready for a fight. But they pull out not a weapon, but a small, worn photograph. It shows a younger version of your colleague, standing beside a smiling woman and a child. They killed my family, Reed, not with a gun, but with their greed, their indifference, their toxic empire. They destroyed everything I loved, and the system protected them. This is the only way to make them pay. The raw grief in their eyes, quickly masked, explains the twisted motive. A personal vendetta cloaked in a crusade for justice. The true killer is not a phantom, but a ghost of their own past, driven by an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. So, what now, Reed? They ask, their voice regaining its unsettling calm. The storm is closing in. The briefcases hold the power to bring down an empire, but releasing them means exposing everything. It means destroying careers, reputations, and potentially lives. Or we can let the storm swallow them. Let the truth remain buried, and the city continue its slow decay. The choice, Reed, is yours. The wind howls, a mournful cry around the yacht. The rain intensifies, lashing at the deck. You look from their determined, haunted face to the cabin where the sealed briefcases await their fate. The weight of the city's secrets, and your own, presses down on you. The choice is a chasm, and you stand at its edge, knowing that either path will scar you forever. The wind howls, a mournful cry around the yacht. The rain intensifies, lashing at the deck. You look from the orchestrator's determined, haunted face to the cabin where the sealed briefcases await their fate. The choice is a chasm, and you step into it. This ends now, you say, your voice a gravelly counterpoint to the storm's fury. The vessel pitches violently, the anchor chain groaning like a tortured beast. Water sloshes across the deck, reflecting the cabin's dim, flickering light. The orchestrator, a figure cloaked in tailored rain gear, offers a chilling smile. Or begins anew. Read Maxwell. The tide turns. You merely choose which current to drown in. Their eyes, devoid of warmth, fix on yours. Those briefcases hold nothing but old grievances and fabricated narratives. They will disappear, just as this storm will erase all trace of our little rendezvous. A flash of lightning illuminates the cabin windows, revealing a glimpse of the storm-tossed harbor beyond. Thunder cracks directly overhead, rattling the very bones of the yacht. You feel the tremor deep in your own chest. Fabricated, you call a man's life, a councilman's blood, and an innocent's wrongful conviction fabricated? Your gaze hardens, cutting through the bluster. The new killing, the echo of the old, it was a message, a taunt, and a mistake, a necessity. The orchestrator corrects, their voice smooth, almost conversational, despite the tempest. Loose ends, Reed. Always loose ends. The system, you see, is a delicate mechanism. Sometimes, a few gears must be sacrificed to ensure the whole continues to turn. They gesture toward the cabin, a subtle invitation, or perhaps a threat. So, let's discuss the true nature of sacrifice. You step into the cabin, the heavy door thudding shut behind you, momentarily muffling the storm's roar. The air inside is thick with the scent of old wood, salt, and something metallic, a faint tang of ozone, or perhaps a more sinister residue. They are the twin hearts of this storm, holding the truth of 2 murders and the rot beneath the city's veneer. These contain your confession, don't they? You state, not asking. The ledger entries, the coded communications, the recordings. A quality that once served you well, read. But certainty can also be a cage. They move toward the briefcases, their hand hovering over one. These contain nothing that can be proven, only inferences. They are useless without context, without a narrative to shape them. And I have the narrative. You counter, your own hand closing around the heavy brass letter opener lying innocently on a nearby shelf. It feels solid, a familiar weight. The councilman was about to expose your network. The new victim was the last piece of the puzzle, the one who could connect the original conspiracy to the current corruption in the planning commission. You remember the cryptic note left at the new scene, a line of poetry that, in retrospect, was a direct reference to the councilman's last public speech about unseen hands guiding the city's future. The orchestrator laughs a dry, humorless sound. Clever, read. You always were, but the city doesn't care for cleverness. It cares for order. The snap of the latch is sharp in the enclosed space. You lunge, not for them, but for the other briefcase. A flicker of surprise crosses their face, a momentary break in their composure. Your fingers scrabble at the cool leather, finding the latch. The orchestrator, recovering, whirls, a glint of steel appearing in their hand. Slim, wicked blade, designed for precision. Fool! They hiss, lunging. The yacht lurches again, a massive wave crashing against the hull, sending a spray of water through a loose vent. You brace yourself, the letter opener at poor defense against their own weapon. Your fingers find purchase on the briefcase latch. It gives with a satisfying click. Inside, neatly arrayed, are stacks of documents, a small digital recorder, and what appears to be a series of encrypted USB drives. Evidence. The truth. This isn't about order, you gasp, pushing away from the table as they press their attack. It's about power, about fear. You remember the weight of the original investigation, the pressure from above, the subtle nudges that steered you away from certain avenues. The system wasn't just corrupt, it was actively complicit. The orchestrator's eyes narrow, their movements fluid and deadly. And you think revealing this will change anything? It will merely expose more weaknesses, create more chaos. You were a part of that system. Read. You closed the case. You put the man away. You were the instrument of its will. Their words are barbs, designed to pierce the fragile shield of your resolve, to drag you back into the mire of your past mistakes. A fresh gust of wind batters the yacht, sending a cascade of items tumbling from a shelf. A heavy glass decanter shatters against the far wall. The orchestrator stumbles for a fraction of a second, just enough. You seize the opportunity. With a desperate heave, you swing the briefcase you hold, not as a weapon, but as a shield, pushing it between you and the blade. The leather groans taking the impact. Perhaps you concede, the admission a bitter taste on your tongue. But instruments can be repurposed. You kick out, catching their knees, sending them off balance. They curse, a guttural sound lost to the storm. You grab the other briefcase, the one they had opened, and secure its latch. 2 briefcases, 2 sets of damning evidence, the full story. You scramble towards the cabin door, the heavy briefcase is clumsy in your grip. The orchestrator recovers, a predatory gleam in their eye. You won't make it off this boat. Read. They snarl, advancing. No one will believe you. Your reputation is already in tatters. A discredited detective chasing ghosts. Your hand is on the cold metal of the door handle. The yacht rocks violently, throwing you against the bulkhead. The storm's roar is deafening now, a primal force. You look back at the orchestrator, their face contorted in a mask of fury and desperation. You see not just a killer, but a desperate architect, watching their meticulously built edifice crumble. They won't have to. You shout over the storm, forcing the door open against the wind's resistance. The evidence will. The choice is made. The chasm crossed. You step out onto the rain-lashed deck, clutching the sealed briefcases, the true reckoning only just beginning. Each gust of wind howls a fractured symphony of chaos, tearing at your soaked clothes, chilling you to the bone. The ocean, a vast, churning maw of ink and foam, threatens to swallow the world whole. The air still hums with the phantom echo of the struggle, the final, desperate lunge of the killer. You had sidestepped a primal instinct, and in that fleeting, rain-slicked moment, the killer's own momentum, coupled with the yacht's sudden sway, had done the rest. A splash, swallowed almost immediately by the roaring tempest, and absence where a presence had been. No triumph, only a hollow ache. Your chest heaves, not just from exertion, but from the raw, exposed nerve of what has just transpired. You stumble, half blinded by the deluge, towards the main cabin, the twin briefcases heavy, water-slicked, the only anchors in this maelstrom. Inside, the cabin's dim light offers little solace, only a stark illumination of your own trembling hands. Water drips from your hair, your clothes, pooling at your feet. The roar of the storm outside is muted here, but its psychological reverberations are deafening. Is it the truth? The reckoning? A metallic click, then another. The sound echoes in the sudden quiet of your focus. You lift the lid of the first briefcase. A kaleidoscope of documents unfurls before you. Crisp, uncreased papers despite the surrounding moisture. Ledgers, encrypted drives, high-resolution photographs. Your eyes scan, greedily, desperately, piecing together the mosaic of deception. Financial transactions, meticulously logged, detailing illicit transfers to offshore accounts. Shell companies, a labyrinthine network designed to obscure the true beneficiaries. Names, some familiar from your past investigations, others entirely new, but all now stained with complicity. Detailed blueprints of the councilman's former residence, complete with marked escape routes and surveillance blind spots. A meticulous timeline, handwritten in a precise, almost artistic script, chronicling the original murder, every step, every misdirection, every planted clue that led to the wrong conviction. A wave of nausea washes over you. The councilman hadn't been a random victim. He had been a warning. And you, Reed Maxwell, had been the unwitting instrument of their initial success, your ambition and flawed judgment exploited, twisted into a weapon against justice. The memory of the innocent man you helped convict, his bewildered eyes in the courtroom, now burns like acid in your gut. His life, a casualty of this monstrous machination, forever etched into your conscience. The phantom, the meticulous killer, was not merely an executor, but a puppet master, orchestrating not just murders, but an entire systemic cover-up, pulling strings that reached into the highest echelons of the city's power structure. The original investigation, your investigation, had been deliberately sabotaged, evidence hidden, witnesses coerced, all to protect the true architect of this corruption. You lean back, the chair groaning under your weight, the documents scattered around you like fallen leaves from a poison tree. The full, horrifying scope of it settles upon you, a crushing weight. The corruption you'd suspected, the rot you'd glimpsed, was deeper, more pervasive than you could have ever imagined. It wasn't just a few bad apples, it was the entire orchard, diseased to its roots. The storm outside shows no sign of abating. Its fury mirrors the tempest raging within you. Rage, grief, a profound sense of betrayal. But beneath it all, a nascent spark, a clarity born of absolute devastation. The path forward, though arduous, is undeniably clear. You reach for the satellite phone, its presence on the cabin table a small beacon of connection to the world you've just uncovered. Your fingers hover over the keypad, contemplating the number, not the local precinct, not the district attorney's office, not yet. Too many compromised hands. You need a clean conduit, an uncorrupted channel. You recall the name of a federal agent, a quiet, tenacious woman from a previous, unrelated case, known for her integrity. Her number, committed to memory from a time when you still believed in the system. This isn't just about clearing your name. It's about dismantling the edifice of lies, about offering some measure of justice to those whose lives were shattered. Your own redemption won't be a swift, triumphant moment, but a long, arduous climb, scarred by the past, but fueled by the stark, unvarnished truth now laid bare before you. You take a deep, shuddering breath, the salt-laced air filling your lungs, sharp and invigorating. The storm still rages, but you are no longer adrift. The briefcases, filled with their damning truths, are secured. You have made your choice. The chasm has been crossed, and though the path ahead is fraught with peril and uncertainty, you stand ready, a determined glint in your eyes to face the storm and to finally bring the light.